I truly believe that, we have our issues with racism, yes, and slavery was an issue, but what you need to recognize is that slavery is transformed in America. It still exists. It's still here. It's all over the place. It's just not, you can't say racist like everybody that's white has a secret KKK hat in their back pocket, because the times have changed, and the times are a-changing still. Nevertheless, many of us, talk about and recognize that that transformation from outright ownership of a human being to the economic slavery package society that we're kind of stuck with. There's always been a peasant class. We can't really, blame that on any one person. But when your peasant class starts getting higher and higher and higher, or it's limited to a specific demographic, such as the color of your skin or your ethnic origin, then human rights erode. That's what we got in our country right now. But they haven't eroded. They're in danger of it. Now, right now, we've got this whole, what we call slavery, I consider is just what's turning us into fertilizer for food for the mega corporations. They're the apex predator of our time, and everything, our entire structure is designed around the bottom, feeding that top. Without the top, and the top doing whatever the hell it wants. It might accidentally drop a corn cob off its table, which could feed a couple thousand families. That's just the nature of the oligarch. They have, if you have more than you can carry, you're going to have stuff fall off, and some accidental good might happen. That doesn't justify the inhuman policies and acts and business ethics that we currently have in our country. But the point is, the economic system is designed for growth at the top. But when the peasant class starts getting larger and larger, you start having problems. And that's what we're looking at under Trump. It went up overnight. Yeah, COVID, sure. Yeah, COVID. But all that does is make the numbers look good. The more people, the more you automate factories, the fewer people. We just constantly bleed people losing jobs every day. What's the rate of Americans losing their jobs per hour in our country right now? Let's put a little perspective into the conversations that we do. Let's put a little thought into what we're actually saying, the stuff that's coming out of our pie hole. Slavery still exists, but it's a slavery of the mind. Now, we are able to get free of that, but we can't if we keep talking the language of slavery, and we keep thinking the thoughts of slaves. You've heard critical thinking skills. That's where this comes in. You must be able to think clearly. You must be able to own your thoughts. You must be able to critically think about what you're being told, and not just blind faith that what you're told is the straight up, absolute, black and white gospel truth. There is no such thing. You cannot be perfectly good throughout your life without hurting somebody. And we seem to think that punishment through laws deters people. Yet people don't live their lives for a purpose anymore. Most people, they live their life avoiding punishment. That's the direction life in America has taken. Do everything you can to blend in and not get noticed. It is the ultimate melting pot, because yes, black people are disproportionately affected because there are so many fewer of them compared to whites, but there are so many of them at the same economic level as poor in the peasant class. Those of us those Americans who have nothing and have nothing coming in and have nothing to look forward to, except for more poverty and misery and no safety net. There is a minimum safety net, but it's only for certain people. It's so easy to, if you don't cross the right T or dot the right I, if you don't do everything exactly perfect, then you're in danger of losing anything. It doesn't take anything for them to say you no longer deserve to be part of this social contract. And whether that means cutting off benefits or prosecuting people, and I'm not thinking of any specific subject right now. I'm just the general people in America who make families that make less than 50 grand a year, man. I mean, that's honestly, that's where you start really hurting in America. If you don't make at least 50 grand a year, then you can't meet the basic needs for more than maybe 2 people. If you have, I'm talking about based on a family of 4. And one person, you know, the American dream, hey, leave it to Beaver, right? Dad goes off to work, makes enough money to support the whole family. Wife stays home, takes care of the children and the cave, the house, whatever. It's a great support structure, but maybe it's time to consider that as well. I mean, there's been a lot of thoughts, but, you know, since television and radio and the ability to influence not just a few people at a time, but millions of people at a time, these ideas have taken on a power, these false ideas have taken on a power that they never had before. And we can see that power. And we can, by looking, I mean, everybody recognizes it. It's not hard to recognize, but how to fix it. You got to understand it before you can fix it. And I don't. I'm not telling you I do. I'm telling you I understand how complex the issue is, and that we got to look deeper than the things we talk about, because that's where it needs the fixing. What's in your heart? And who put it there? And why? That's the path to enlightenment right there. What's in my heart? How to get there? And is it right? There's so many different things. We have opinions on everything. And that's because we're constantly redefining ourselves. We're building our brain from the day we're born until the day we die. You know? Yes, there's a little decline there at the end, but that's the nature of life. There is no permanence. There is no permanence in our entire universe. Our galaxy is not permanent. Heck, the universe isn't permanent. So, you know, perspective. As long as you keep perspective, then the rest doesn't bother you so much. The answers will come when you are connected to the flow of creation that's already inside you. All you gotta do is get rid of all of your thoughts and all of your expectations, as well as all of your hang-ups. Get rid of all of your hang-ups. That is a big part, because those hang-ups that we carry around causes us to inflict damage on other people. And that's really about as far as modern therapy gets with people. And yet, when we can apply that with empathy to the people that have hurt us, if we start telling ourselves that we are valid, and it's not affirmations, it's not... A person who's resistant to recovery is effectively screaming inside at everybody else, there's nothing wrong with me. Why can't you validate? Why can't you understand that what happened to me wasn't my fault? Okay, that's resistant to recovery. It's one of the ways that we can become resistant to recovery, okay? Right, so one of the things that makes us resistant to recovery is our current failings. Whether it be financial, whether it be a lifestyle, unable to cope with all the pressures that the world really does put upon us. And that's the most vulnerable to this is the single parent raising a child. If there's not a second parent in the picture, at least. Very rarely in today's society are we going to have kids growing up in the Leave It to Beaver American dream. So part of being able to forgive yourself is to understand that we're not capable of succeeding on our own by ourselves in our society. It's not set up that way. we're almost set up to where you have to have a support system and that you live with, like a commune. That was kind of the idea there. We'll help each other since nobody else wants to. The problem is, if you get more than 4 or 5 people, like friends or cheers, that small of a group, if you get much bigger than that, then it's really easy there's so many bad apples in the world. There's so many people that just choose to make selfishness their prime moral drive. Like for instance, I love Snoop Dogg, but if you listen to him when he was growing up, he was the kid that would go through your family's house and walk off with a laptop or something if he thought he could get away with it. And there's a lot of people like that, opportunists. And that is just a physical money thing. That's not really something I'm slamming on or anything. But we have to recognize that. So when we're that drive in people, that not everybody's altruistic. In fact, most people are not altruistic. Most people live our lives out of a selfish drive for what's best for us. The problem is, the closer you get to the surface, the closer you get to your feelings or stimulating your own emotions, the farther away you get from your authentic self. You just got to feel stuff in order to be. And yet, if you quit stimulating yourself all the time, through your ears, through a molecule, whether it be alcohol, cannabis, nicotine, or something harder, something not so mainstream, like barbiturates or heroin, or opiates, or all the damn brain drugs we have in the United States right now. That's a scary railroad train to get on, too. If it doesn't work for you the first time, I recommend you just walk away from the whole thing, because man, once you start shooting up into your essence certain molecules, it really alters you. And it can take a really long time to overcome that. I went through the pharmaceutical mental health side of the United States. Never any one thing long enough to say it worked. But I found all the problems with just about every single one. I was just consider myself kind of unique that way. If there was a 1.5% chance of a side effect, there was a 80% chance that I would get that side effect. I just get the weird side effects every time. And a lot of that is because that single molecule doesn't do the perfect job 100% of the time. It all depends upon the genetic makeup. So we've got to start thinking in terms of ecosystems and side effects. Side effects, that's what, ignoring side effects is what leads to not thinking in terms of being connected to the earth. Once you realize that we are part of creation, we are meant to be part of creation, we're expected to be part of creation, as much as this wild Canadian goose over here. I mean, they're going to go where they want and do what they want according to their instinct. Goose, that Canadian goose, is a valid part of creation. He doesn't feel guilty for anything, or she doesn't feel guilty for anything. They just live their life. They get their food. They raise their chicks. They protect their young. They try to fight off predators. And they're a beautiful part of creation. And guess what? So are you. So am I. So are we. And if you can even identify, if you can give that goose every right to be here and the protections to not be killed by humans, which they have, why do we not extend that same solidarity to human beings who are truly sovereign creatures? That's what sentience gives us, the ability to step up and solve problems. That's what sovereignty is. The ability to effect changes on your world beyond your little bitty biological life cycle. We learn to walk, we eat, we make kids, we die. Same thing that animals do, okay? So as humans, life is a constant fight for resources, constantly. So civilization becomes the allocation of resources. Who gets what? And we got to figure out the rules to abide by, that social contract that even makes Wall Street possible. That's what people are scared of when they're scared of change. They're afraid that they're going to lose their personal power. And pretty soon, enough people are going to want that personal power back. That's when you get revolution, civil war. Hopefully this is just going to be a war of words. And because hearts and minds, man, I don't think that we're going to, if we resort to physical violence anymore, and I'm not referring to the protesters, I'm talking about the overall big picture that everybody's scared of right now. 4 more years of Trump, and people are thinking that we're going to have a body count to rival Hitler. And it's quite possible. It's quite possible. And that Republicans are enabling that dictatorship means I'll never identify myself as a Republican again. I'm done with that party. And they lost me forever when they refused to stand up to evil. And if you want to know what I mean by evil, why don't you get on Twitter and just read Trump's tweets. Every tweet, he built his character. Every tweet, he shows you what's in his heart. Every time he preaches hate and divisiveness, he worships chaos. He profits from chaos. All his buddies profit from chaos because they game the system. So gaming the system gets you financially successful. That doesn't make your character. That should impugn your character. That amount of financial success. Now, there are... it's one thing to be rewarded for providing society with something that's beneficial to everybody. The amount of freedoms that they steal from you just by allowing you to use or view their service. This is a functional break in American ethics. This is a functional breakdown of American ethics. The idea that Zuckerberg is not censoring my information is laughable. Is nobody paying attention to this? I mean, when you have very limited feeds, you see patterns a lot clearer. When you don't, but at the same time, I'm not really getting into the whole social media. I'm telling you how Zuckerberg has affected me personally as an American who does not like Facebook and does not use Facebook. Now, in February, I finally activated Facebook so I could speak to my daughter through their video app, the Messenger, I guess. And I haven't done it since. I haven't, I think my kids put an advertisement on Facebook to get rid of some cats or something. And that's the only thing my account's been used for. And yet it is invasive into every part of my social media and internet experience. Hell, let's talk about just what it takes to get on the internet. Now, I bought a laptop the other day, and on this laptop, when I booted it up for the first time, I had to go through the whole Microsoft rigmarole. Now, I don't like Microsoft. I don't use it except for Microsoft Word. I use Microsoft Word for my docs on online free version. And then I use Windows 10. That's it. I want to operate my computer that way. But I am invaded by that, by Hewlett-Packard, by their software, before I ever get to Google, which is what I actually use. I kind of do my best to limit everything to one of the megacorps, and Google at least tries to live up to their end of the bargain, so to speak, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know. I haven't really looked at Google, seen a few TED Talks about them, but they're very quiet. And Zuckerberg's not. So, I don't know, man. Google, the wikis, there's so many good things on the internet. But we need to recognize that everything has a spectrum to it, no matter what it is. This idea of a black is bad and white is good, and we don't talk or view anything, any human behavior or any effect, we don't view anything on a spectrum of other behaviors. We've tried to isolate everything like it's like each individual wrong is a single molecule and has nothing to do with anything else. Once you become connected with the powers of creation, you will see the necessity so much that everything is connected. That's the best way I can tell you. I mean, just look at any part of our universe and you will see how we're connected. One thing to the other. Not how we're bound together, but how my existence affects yours and your existence affects mine. And that goes down through every substance, every molecular structure that we've got in creation. And, what we think of as permanent, there is no real permanence. And once you understand that, for us, the best we can hope for is that something that came before us will still be there after we're gone. So for us, this is permanent. And it feels that way. And yet it's not. It's always in change. It's always in flux. Everything's connected. And you cannot destroy an ecosystem and replace it with some artificial construct and expect it to be better. You can make it where it looks better. Corn, for instance, GMO foods that we've got. I'm not getting into that. Nope, not going down the GMO rabbit hole, okay? But it is something to think about and consider. That now I've seen articles there. I'm not the only person that thinks in terms of ecosystems. I'm one of the few common men that think about ecosystems. We have scientists that have done amazing work connecting things together. Even them, science by definition, our scientific method, it searches for the God molecule and everything, figuratively speaking. It takes a question and answers a narrow focus. But the ones that study the ecosystems and the interactions, there's been some really amazing progress in our understanding of ecosystems. And the funny thing is, there's documentaries on different people and different ways of growing things. All this information is out there. I didn't create any of this information. It's just stuff I've run across. So I'm bringing it all together, and I recognize that I'm getting a little fragmented. So it's my last cup of coffee. Bye-bye.